welcome to the Everyday Veteran Podcast. I'm your host, Marine Corps veteran Pat Keplinger, and with me tonight we've got a special guest, Kerry DeGuilio, Marine Corps veteran. Hey, Kerry, how are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Thanks for coming on tonight. Really appreciate it.
I'm flexing my unit for everybody that cares, by the way.
Why don't you say who that is?
1st Battalion, 9th Marines, Bravo Company. Thank you very much.
Awesome. So why don't we just kind of start off a little bit about yourself and where you're from and how you ended up in the Marine Corps?
Just lucky, I guess. Let's see. I was born in Chicago, grew up in Colorado, moved to California, and that's where I actually joined the Army out of high school, but the Army was terrible, needless to say. Everybody knows that. So I got out and joined the Marine Corps. Because
so you actually spent time in the Army?
Yeah, not long. Just long enough to know that it wasn't going to be my thing. And I was in a Marine Corps recruiter's office 2 weeks later.
Nice.
Because I needed to challenge Army veterans. You know what I'm talking about?
So that's something I never knew about you. That's awesome. I won't hold it against you too much. So you joined the Marine Corps. Why the Marine Corps? The Army didn't work out, but why the Marine Corps?
So when I joined the Army, I joined to be a helicopter repair person, which seemed like a brilliant idea at 18 years old. I'm like, I'm going to repair helicopters. I'm going to get out and I'm going to be able to do all kinds of helicopter stuff or whatever. But the moment that I realized I was committed to 5 years of working on aircraft, I got out. It was called an entry-level separation. Thank goodness they let me take it. And then I went into the Marine Corps recruiter's office where when I'd been in the Army recruiter's office, I had told him, I'm 18 years old. If I had 2 years to waste, I'd just join the infantry. And I was like, nope, got to get to work, get a real job. And but then I ended up joining the Marine Corps infantry for 4 years when I was 20. So no regrets.
They got you.
Yeah, no regrets.
No regrets.
Definitely
so 20 years old, Marine Corps, you went to boot camp. Are you West Coast, East Coast?
West Coast. I think only East Coast Marines really take the East Coast West Coast thing seriously. Like West Coast Marines are just like whatever. And then we meet somebody from Lejeune and they're like, "Oh, Hollywood Marine, we know what that's all about." Yes, I watched airplanes land in San Diego, wishing I was somewhere else.
Getting on one of those as soon as you could. Awesome.
Yeah.
So what was boot camp like?
The truth is, I don't remember boot camp the way most people do. For me, because by that time I had already been through Army boot camp, so it was really just a means of transitioning from the civilian world into the Marine Corps, which is where I wanted to be. I do remember my drill instructor telling us, though. Can I swear on this podcast? Okay, I'll use the F word. I'm not going to say it, but we'll know what I'm talking about. He said, "Don't F with Fleet Marines. They'll effing kill you." And I didn't understand what he meant about that at the time until I became a Fleet Marine. And man, some boot talks to me in a squirrely way. It's going to be a mess.
Oh, that's funny. So you got to the fleet, you got to your unit, and just jump right in. Was there some type of initiation for you, or what was that like?
So they tell you never to trust your recruiter. I'm looking at you, recruiters, and my Marine Corps recruiter, I walked in, I said, I want to be infantry. It's the only thing I want to be. And he said, you know how I can guarantee that you're a rifleman? I'm like, how? And he said, security forces. It's like the MSG, it's like the security guards in the embassy, only not like that really. So that's the story of how I ended up at on the beach at Naval Air Station North Island in San Diego for a couple years in the beginning, just begging to be in the fleet.
Mm-hmm.
Walking security force post which was fun training, but the actual reality of it wasn't as great. Yeah. So I did that for a couple years, and then that's when I finally got transitioned to the fleet and got to 1st Battalion, 9th Marines.
And then what was it like? Say again.
It couldn't have gone better after that. I mean, like, it was, literally from like the day that I began, First Bravo Company, First Battalion, 9th Marines is an amphibious raider unit, so we rode the boats. That's how we got in and out of place. That's what we trained. Zodiacs mostly, but rigid raiders too. And when I was at the security force school, or when I was at security forces in San Diego, we were given 3 billets to Marine Combat Instructor of Water Survival School, and almost nobody could pass that course. Just the test to get into it was really hard, and so I was one of the, like 3 people in my entire unit that was able to pass that to get into the school. So I took that course, and the instructor there, Staff Sergeant Lamb, was like super Marine, like we became Marine Combat Instructors of Water Survival, and he was one of like 7 trainers in the Marine Corps at the time. So he was just this, like, did triathlons and all this other stuff, just out of control, strength, speed, stamina, all that stuff. And I remember he's a person I would never forget if that was the only time I met him. But when I was checking into 1-9, I was standing in the hallway, and there's Staff Sergeant Lamb. And I'm like, Staff Sergeant, I was in your class, swim school in San Diego a couple years back. And he's like, you're going to my platoon. You're going to be a scout swimmer. You're leaving in 3 days. And he's like, and then he took me over to the guy, and he's like, put this guy in first platoon, and he's leaving for scout swimmer school in 3 days. And I'm like, that is the only thing I ever wanted to do.
Awesome. And then so your integration into that platoon, pretty easy, and you get along with everybody pretty well?
Well, yeah, what's funny, I mean, when you meet people that you spend that kind of time with afterwards, it's like you're friends for life no matter what. But then Staff Sergeant Lamb, he grabbed another Marine there, and he said, this is going to be your swim buddy. Don't do anything without him ever again. I still talk to that guy today.
We do. That's awesome.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Yeah, we didn't.
That's awesome.
We never left each other's side for the next like 2 years or something.
What were some of the biggest takeaways that you got from your service? Did you, that you took throughout your life? Some of those intangibles.
It's hard, like, to explain to people. Like, when you're talking to another veteran, they get it. But the camaraderie, the brotherhood, that connection is so complete. Like, you do things together that you'll never do with civilians. They would look at you like you're crazy if you even thought of it, But when with the people that you serve with, it's just, you look at them and like, yeah, let's do this. And the way I tell people now, even now, like if I meet a Marine, it doesn't matter where I meet him. It could be breakfast at Denny's, or like out on town. It could be shopping. I just ran into a Marine because I was wearing my 0311 shirt at Walmart, and this guy said, so I guess I don't have to ask if you're a Marine. He just said Semper Fi. And I said, of course. And I tell people when I try to explain it to them, it's like, you ever run into a cousin? If you ever run into a cousin at like a wedding or funeral, and you're like, oh my God, I didn't even know we were cousins. By the end of the day, it doesn't even matter that you didn't know each other your whole entire life. You're family now, and that's what you know. And that's what it's like every time I meet another Marine. It's like, I don't know where you're from. I don't know what you've done up to this point, but we're now family. So what do you want to do? You want to hang out, or you just want to talk later?
That's so true. It's so true. So I met you on the cul-de-sac out in the front of my house, and I saw the Marine sticker on your car. I was like, oh, that dude's a Marine, right on. And it's funny because you associate with, I'm assuming the other branches they're not like us Marines, right? I mean, I guess they probably are a little bit, but not to the extreme that, Marines get together and you know that I will always be there for you no matter what, right?
Yeah.
And I know that no matter what, you'll be there for me because we're Marines.
Yeah.
I don't know if they really share that in other services, but it's funny how you can be in Walmart wearing a t-shirt, or an old dude at Home Depot, and you see the hat, you see the EGA, which is Eagle, Globe, and Anchor. And it's that connection, and it's like the shared misery.
Yeah.
The shared.
I instantly want to know where they've been, what they've done. What have you been through? Tell me some stuff I haven't seen. Were we ever in the same place? Were we there at the same time? We got to know some of the same people. We almost always do. It's
Yeah.
great. I love that.
Yeah. And you
Yeah,
said,
go ahead.
you just mentioned about camaraderie is one of the things that you kind of took away from that. And you still are connected with your battle buddy, your swim buddy, but do you still keep in contact with a lot of the other guys too?
Yeah, they're spread all over the country right now, but we get together a couple times a year. We do two moto humps, one in October, which is actually this coming week. It's actually this Saturday. Anyways, we meet up at Camp Pendleton, climb the old hills, and talk about how cool we were. Pay respects, that kind of thing. But then in April we do one where we climb the other hill, Mount Mother Effer, as we're all familiar with. And talk about how cool we were and how awesome we still are. Obviously, if we're still climbing these same old mountains while we're much more mature. And then we go down and we barbecue and hang out and, try to, keep in touch that way. But then my unit, Bravo, Bravo 19, we do another get together every 2 years where it's a destination get together, where this last year in June we went to New Orleans, and luckily, hate to say the word COVID, but we passed over the COVID year, thank goodness, because in 2019 we went to Vegas, and so we're still trying to decide where we're going to go in 2023, but we're talking cruise or Texas, I don't know, wherever. We all meet up there for a blowout, like a week-long blowout type thing.
And having a bunch of Marines gather in Vegas and on Bourbon Street.
That's why we only go to one place at a time, because we tend not to.
And every 2 years, right?
Yeah, we're not invited back, and there's no real the newspaper articles have drifted into the bottom of Google and that type of thing.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So your buddies that you get along with, and you're obviously keeping in touch with them. Do they remember a lot of the same stories, obviously, or is it when you guys get together, or is it just like, hey, my back hurts. I've got gray hair, like a beer belly.
No, it's the stories. I remember what it was like. It's always stories with Marines. I don't know what it's like in the other services, but with the Marines, it's always like retelling the stories of events. And it's funny when like the wives or somebody else is around and they might be hearing it for the first time, but we're rehashing it for the 1,000th time. But I remember the first time I figured out that that's what it was for me when actually my daughter's mom, your neighbor, her grandfather is a Marine or was a Marine. And when I went up there and sat down with him, they're like, he's going to talk your ear off. You don't have to listen to these stories. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Go away. Like, don't interrupt. He walked from Camp Pendleton to San Diego to climb on a boat and go to Korea. Like, that was a hardened time. Like, I might talk about being salty from back in the 90s, but boy, I didn't have to hump my entire like combat pack all the way to San Diego so I could get on a boat and go to Korea.
That's crazy. So you guys got along pretty well then?
Yeah, he was a good guy.
Oh, that's awesome. What were some of the stories that he shared with you in terms of just being a Marine? I mean, not the combat stories and stuff like that, but just the shared stories of being a Marine.
Well,
do you remember any
it was sort of the same. Like the longer I've been out, the more starry-eyed current Marines look at me, which is what it was like for me, because he just talked about that stuff like it was normal. Like, hey, that was life, like, sure, of course we walked to Camp Pendleton. There weren't trucks to carry us. They were busy. They were in, they were being used overseas or whatever. They'd already shipped. We had to get to our boat somehow. How else were we going to get there? So it's the same, like, that's the thing I remember is for me, I was just in awe because I'd only been in a couple years by that time. Or no, I'd actually been out. Sorry. My timeline's way thrown off. By that time, I'd been out for a long time if I'd been dating Kara. But yeah, no, it's just that just listening to a Marine who had seen stuff I'd only heard about was it's always interesting, and I don't even want to interrupt them while they tell those stories.
Yeah, it's always a good time. What years did you serve in the Marine Corps?
90 to 94.
90 to 94.
October.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, doing my reunions right now. October, or not reunions, but anniversaries. October 22nd to October 23rd, or something like that.
Oh, okay. Okay. And then how was that transition when you decided to get out? Did you just do your first enlistment and say, I'm done with this. My body hurts. I want to try something different? Or what did that look like for you?
I'll tell you the way that I tell it when I'm telling the truth. When we got back from overseas, we went on Westpac 13th Mu 93 to 94, and we ended up in Somalia, which was a dirt pit, needless to say, as anybody who's been there knows. But when we got back, it was March of 94, and I had about 6 months left. March of 94, I got out in October of 94. So I went TAD to division schools, and man, that was a cakewalk. Like I was E4 at the time, and I was like corporal at S4, sergeant, whatever it was that they have you do. I never, sorry, Pokes, but I can never keep track of what you call each other. But I was scheduling helicopters and trucks and sending MREs to training for division schools, which was super fun. But and easy, and like I guess I could say it now, but I used to play Doom on the company computer, like after hours. Like I'd stick around and play Doom on the crappy little government computers, which I am pretty sure we weren't supposed to be doing.
I'm pretty sure too.
But then, so it was coming up time to make a decision, re-enlist or get out. And by this time, coming back from overseas had given me the desire to basically do everything I'd never done before I went overseas. And so I had gotten started coaching gym. I'd actually started to do gymnastics, which is something I'd done in high school. I found an adult gymnastics class out in town, and I was serving the whole day in the Marine Corps and then going out and doing this class. But then after a couple of weeks, the instructor invited me to teach a class. So now I was doing the Marine Corps thing all day long and going out into Orange County and teaching little like 4-year-olds how to do gymnastics. It is a strange dichotomy to go and be a brutal, like angry, violent Marine, and then be like, okay, everybody, come on, let's get together. We're going to do something fun today. And, but the funny thing about little kids, boy, you can't turn your back on them for one, and for two, you got to be the most exciting thing in the room, or you're going to lose 3 of them just when you because you're not that fun. But anyways, so when it came down to make a decision, I just knew I was getting up at 3, 4, 5 in the morning or whatever, doing the Marine thing all day, then driving out 45 minutes into Orange County until 9 o'clock at night, turning around, coming back, and getting just little bits of sleep, which is the thing you can do as a Marine. But then I knew there's no way I was going to be able to re-enlist and keep up that, keep up that schedule. Like they wanted me to go full time at division schools, which here we go again. I can be disparaging. It's not intentional. I appreciate everybody's service. But there was a gunny at division schools who served his whole entire Marine career there. And I didn't want to be that guy. Like I didn't want to come out 18 years later and have never left division schools. So I had to make a decision. It was, do I want to kill people or do I want to coach children? And so I think we can all see the decision I made, and I got out and I coached kids tumbling and gymnastics, and it was fun. Like by let's say I got out in 94, and by the middle of 95, I had some partners and we opened up our own gym, and so ran that gym, coaching cheerleading, tumbling, gymnastics, all this stuff for the next bunch of years, and that's pretty much what I did through the end of my 20s.
That's awesome. And then from there, what was the next transition into? What'd you do after that?
BS grown-up stuff.
BS grown-up stuff.
Yeah. That's awesome. I had to grow up. I got a real job. I got a real job doing sales.
Sales.
Yeah.
And so now you're Do you care to share where you're at now, or do you want to kind of keep that
Oh, I don't mind.
private?
Come visit me at Pachanga. Come visit me at Pachanga.
Okay.
Oh, hey,
And what are you
is it
doing at
called?
Pachanga?
Sorry, come visit me at the unnamed casino.
And the the really big casino, Temecula.
Yeah, sorry.
So how did you get into Pachanga?
Pachanga. Oh, it's Pachanga. Trust me.
Pachanga.
Man, if I get in trouble for this, but I always make jokes when because it's pronounced Pachanga. That's the proper way to pronounce it. But I know that everybody pronounces it Pachanga. So when I'm, facetiously making fun of our guests, I'm like, "Hey guys, you guys want to go to Pachanga this weekend? It's gonna be so fun. Let's go out to Pachanga." It's Pachanga.
Pachanga. So how did you get hooked up with that job, and what are you doing there?
Pachanga is great. Here's where maybe they'll let me keep my job. Pachanga is great. I love that. I love their business. I used to be a guest there. I'd go and I was working up the road as a pharmaceutical sales for a while with this company up in Temecula. And when that job ended, I was going to Pachanga playing poker in the poker room just to kill some time. And it was a good time. But man, their team members were so friendly and so helpful and so caring, so sincere. I looked around and I was like, man, I should get a job here. And I started looking into it. They have so many jobs. They have just, a million different jobs that you can do. It's like a whole city. They have everything. I work in the marketing department now, but I've worked in a different level of the marketing department before, just a whole different area that's also marketing. They have electricians, they've got plumbers, they've got carpenters, they've got cabinet makers, they've got all the floor people, the slot floor people, the dealers, all this stuff. I mean, everybody thinks I'm a dealer. They're like, "Oh, are you a dealer?" And I'm like, "Why is everybody at Pachanga a dealer?" But I'm not. Like, I don't do the gambling stuff. I work in the marketing department now.
How long have you been there?
It's 8 years. Gosh,
8 years.
8 years.
Goes by fast.
Because it took me about a year to actually get on, of like talking to the people, looking for the right position, finding something. Because once I decided I wanted to work there, I basically didn't give up, and then I ended up coming in into the marketing operations, which is the rewards club, which was fun. It's working directly with the people and solving their problems on the floor. And I'll tell people, this is, back to, like, I should have started at a casino right after I got out of the Marine Corps, because the chaos is nothing to me. Like, people are like, everything's going crazy. I'm super upset. And I'm like, let's take a minute and calm down. Like, let's just look around and see if anything's really going wrong. Let's fix it. We'll just take it slow. And that's definitely, like, being able to focus in on fixing the problem under a chaotic situation is definitely something I learned in the military.
And dealing with 4-year-olds, right?
That too.
That too.
Oh, which is funny. This is another thing I love to say. The Marines will appreciate, or either that or I'll upset some again. But I coach cheerleaders, as I've said. And man,
wait a minute. I think you said gymnastics. I don't remember it being cheerleaders.
Yeah, cheerleading, tumbling, gymnastics, trampoline. It was fun. So there's a lot of cheerleaders that need to do gymnastics and tumbling for their, routines or whatever. And so I'll tell people are like, "How'd you get into that? How'd you learn to teach cheerleaders?" And I'm like, you know what? Cheerleaders, they're a bunch of whiny girls. I was in the Marine Corps. It's a bunch of whiny girls. Like, it's all the same.
That's right. Very true. Not trying to offend anybody right now, right?
Cheerleaders are just not as good at whining as Marines are.
When you were getting out of the Marine Corps, what was that transition like for you? Did you go through like a transition course, or did they kind of like walk you through that process, or they just say like, "Hey, here's your DD 214 and have a good life"?
They did those classes. Man, I don't know what they're doing these days, but I know when I was coming out, like, they do not have the slightest idea how to transition you back into the real world. I don't think they've fixed that. I think every single Marine just somehow thinks they'll survive when they get out, and then you walk out and you walk into a Walmart and you're like, "These are not my people. I don't know who these people are, but these are not my people." And then you go out and you get jobs. And I can name like 3 bosses in 25 years who I could respect the same as even one of my worst, you know, leaders in the Marine Corps. And that's not to disparage them. It's except when I say that they're civilians, they don't know any better, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But there are very few that have the intensity and passion, you know, like that a real Marine Corps leader has, the kind that the attention to detail and the inherent concern that it's done right, done safely, done, and doesn't have to be done again or redo it from the beginning. And we'll do it next to you because that's the kind of leader they are, and they won't complain.
We always kind of talk about the old core, and I think every generation does that, right? My dad talked about it. Probably the Korean veteran talked about it. You talked about it. It's the next generation, right? Do you feel that the Marines that are coming out now, or it's pretty similar, and that you have that connection with them still? And
I have that connection, and I also feel the differences. First of all, I see that dumb stuff they do on videos, and I love it. I'm so proud of them for their stupid stuff that they do. On video, though, is, you know, like that's a different generation. I don't know how long I would have survived with video around. But just as an example, and I'm sure you can Google it and find it, but there's a video that I loved when some kids out of North Carolina were running around in their dolphin shorts or whatever, you know, the PT shorts with a flag draped around their neck while they're trying to fly in the hurricane. God, I was so jealous of that. I wanted to be there jumping into the wind with them. But that pure, like, lack of sense, the complete separation of their, like, concern for their health as opposed to their concern of having fun, like, that still exists. I literally just watched a video yesterday and posted it on my Marine Corps site of some Marines that picked up their buddy, held him on his shoulder, so now he's like a spear, and they used his head to punch that punching bag that they have as the video game, you know, like that video that you're supposed to punch to see how strong it was. But you know, a whole like squad of Marines decided to use their buddy's head, which I thought was a great idea. I'm like, I wish I'd been there too. Like, I would have wanted to see that happen. I'm glad they got it on video so I could be impressed with them. I love these kids. I love them so much. But they deal with something so different than we ever dealt with. The constant attention, the scandal after scandal that the Marine Corps has been through and gets ticked about, you know, over the years, that they keep adding on to, like, well, now you can't do this and now you can't do that. We used to go to Mexico like it was like that was our job. Like, part of the job in the Marine Corps was to live half of it in Mexico. Now they can't even cross the border without permission, and that's even if they have relatives down there.
Yeah, it's tough. It's different, and you know, everybody's on the social media, their phones, and so I remember just the stupid things that we would do in the barracks, and then when I was a leader, you know, all the stupid things my Marines would do, and you just laugh, right? Because it's funny.
Yeah.
But if you try and tell those stories out in the civilian world, they did what? They used their head as a spear, you know, or they jumped off a building trying to fly like, you know, Mary Poppins. Of course,
seven of their friends helped him. Thought it was a good idea. Find 7 good friends right now who will pick you up and use you as a spear to punch a punching bag. Like, you just, you know, that people are hard to find. You know, this is a story I always tell to give it because I remember when I joined the Army because I didn't know any better. I thought I should join the Army. My dad was in the Army, and I'm like, I grew up knowing I was going to be in the Army. It was always the thing that I was going to do until I got there and found out it wasn't challenging. And that's when I was like, I can't do this. I need to be challenged. And so the story I always tell about the Marine Corps, so when I was in high school, my friend was joining the Marine Corps while I was joining the Army. I was like, you're joining the Marine Corps? That's crazy. Marines are crazy. Why would you join the Marine Corps? Everybody knows the Marines are just the craziest people ever. So I got out of the Army, joined the Marine Corps, And now the story I tell people as proof, like when they're like, okay, look, let me give you a story. We're hanging around the barracks. It's the weekend. We have nothing better to do. We're not going out until it starts to get dark. So all day long, we're just hanging around a bunch of 20-something-year-old men in groups, egging each other on to do the stupidest stuff. And I tell these guys, I'm like, look, I can climb to the top of that building right there on the outside. Stairs, I don't need them. I can. It's easy. It's like, no way you can do it. I was like, all right, listen, I can do it. So I get onto the wall, and it's got these little, it's at Camp Horno, the barracks that are right there, and it has those little rock ledges that you can put your hands into. And I shimmy up to the third floor, and I climb over the balcony. I look down, and I'm like, F you, F you, F you. You're cool, F you. And I did not climb up that again because it was not a great idea. But that, like, it was just like, I will do this because you told me I can't. And it's not a good idea.
That's right.
But it's still possible.
You have 2 kids. You've got a boy and a girl. And if you want to talk about them, that's great. But the question is, would you ever let one of them become a Marine?
Okay, so this is I try to treat my kids the way I'd treat anybody. I mean, except I love them more because they're awesome. But when it comes to that question, to me, it always has the same answer. You need to want to join the Marine Corps. Don't join the Marine Corps because, like, I'll encourage anybody to join the Navy. Like, join the Navy. What could go wrong? Like, get on a ship. Yes, spend some years on a ship. I'm sure you'll learn something. What could possibly go wrong with it? If you're smart, join the Air Force. Here's where I'm going to talk you guys up. If you're smart and you don't want to get into any kind of trouble, join the Air Force. You'll probably come out, get a job, and get paid a lot of money right away. But if not, don't even look at the Air Force because it's too hard to get into. Forget about it. You want to get some regular old job, join the Army. You could end up anywhere in the world. Germany, wouldn't suggest it, but go ahead. It's not a mistake. You know what I mean? Coast Guard, sure. Have you ever met somebody from the Coast Guard? No, that's a serious question. Have you?
Well, I one time.
See, they're rare. Like, you say you're from the Coast Guard, and you're like a very slim portion of the planet. Like, oh yeah, I served in the United States Coast Guard. Really? So you've seen some action. They actually do stuff. Like, they ride around, and then people mess with them, and they gotta actually work for a living. But when it comes to the Marine Corps, I just tell people, I'm like, you need to be driven. You need to want that. Like, it's got to, and it does. I don't care who it is then, girl or boy. Like, if you're saying I need to join the Marine Corps and you're thinking of nothing else, join the Marine Corps. Don't not join the Marine Corps. Join the Marine Corps, or else you're going to regret it. Do it, get through it, live it, experience, spend the rest of your life telling people how awesome it was and how awesome you are for having done it. But if you don't have that drive, don't go near the place. It is absolute lunacy. It is a madhouse. You will be chewed to pieces, and you'll be one of those people who spend the rest of their life going, "Oh, I was in the Marine Corps and it was terrible. Like, all those people are crazy. Like, they break down doors and they smash into things. It's just, what do you do? What's the Marine Corps?"
It's very true. But what's funny is I was going to say that I've talked to so many Marines that when you ask them, like, so why'd you join the Marine Corps? Well, the recruiter came to high school in his uniform. And, it's so funny that, like, the uniform is what gets a lot of people. And it's like, okay, I can see it.
See, go talk, when you talk to infantry Marines, I don't think it's the uniform. I do not think it's the uniform. I've only vaguely associated that uniform with the Marines, and for me it's two totally separate things. Like, sure, there's the uniform that you throw on, but I may have only worn it 3 times when I was actually in. This is going to be terrible, but I don't really know the names of all those dress uniforms because I never had to wear them. Like, I know the names of the cami uniforms. As a matter of fact, that video that I watched today, I was checking out the cami uniforms. I was like, those are old. This is an old video.
That's what black boots that are shine.
Hey, I was in Somalia in those boots. They didn't give us desert boots. I heard about those. Like, oh, you can have boots that match the environment that you're in.
So let me ask you a question. Speaking of uniforms, being in the infantry where you're at, did you ever starch your camis? The look on your the look on your face. So
it sounds terrible. Like,
yeah.
I think I had one set of camis that I would have done at a cleaners in case I had to wear them in the back for some reason. Yeah, what a nightmare though. I have, and I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be the only person who's done this, but I have definitely put my camis underneath my rack overnight so that I could just throw them on in the morning, flattened out, and hope that they last till everybody else left, like 1 or 2 o'clock.
You're not the only one, I'm sure. Where's the most miserable place the Marine Corps took you? Would it be Somalia?
Oh man, I can tell you because I can still see it. We were standing under this demolished, the doorway of this demolished like building. It was in Somalia, and we'd been there for maybe 3 days, but there were no roofs on anything. Everything in Somalia was so totally destroyed that there were no ceilings on any building. So we were living in this abandoned prison complex, and there was this one section of wall. There was a surrounding wall, so we were inside of it. That way, we only had to secure the entrances. But interior wise, most of the interior walls had been knocked down. So there was this one wall that hung out, and there was a doorway, and that doorway cast a shadow. And we would take turns standing in the shade because it was 123 degrees or whatever. And we'd get about 2 minutes in the shade, and then we had to switch out. It's like, all right, your turn. I'll go back in the sun. And then we had that camouflage netting set up for whatever stupid reason. Don't ask me why we set up camouflage netting, because first of all, nobody else had airships to be hiding from in the sky. You know what I mean? It's not like we needed to, there were no drones back then. So, but then it didn't matter because I'm pretty sure that the helicopter pilots had vendettas against us when they'd come in the CH-53s and drop these monstrous water balloons. Did you guys have those? They're these
No.
big like rubber balloons full of water that they flew in and they'd drop. But when they had to drop this massive balloon of water, they had to backwash the rotors to, get them down to the ground without slamming the water bottle into the ground. So that would blow everything to shit. I mean, everything apart. Like, beep. Sorry about that. But anyways, that would blow the entire camp to pieces, and we'd have to reset up every time they came in. So I'm like, why are we resetting this up? Who are we hiding from in the sky right now? Man, that water tasted terrible. It tasted exactly like those rubber balloons looked.
Oh, yeah. So they were the big bladders you're talking about, right?
Yes, bladders. Sure.
Okay.
See?
Okay.
You pogues know what I'm talking about.
I'm just pretending I know what you're talking about, old man. Like back when I was a Marine. We had water shipped in plastic balloons.
Big, huge bladders of water. That's exactly what they were. I forgot what they called them. I didn't care because it wrecked our camp every time.
And it was safe to drink that water, right? I mean, you didn't have to put your iodine tablet in them.
Yeah, I'm sure there's nothing wrong with that water. Who knows?
Nothing wrong with you now.
Probably scooped it right out of the ocean.
Just throw some tabs in there, some iodine tabs in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Somalia, just miserable. Can you still smell it?
That's the one thing I can't smell. I can't actually smell it, but I can see every bit of it. The dirt, the sand, the orange, the brownish colors of everything. The trucks that we drove on when we got around, the helicopters as they landed and we went in.
So where's the best place that the Marine Corps ever sent you?
Oh man, this is a great question. Because nobody's ever heard of it. And it was definitely the Seychelles Islands. Like, it's just these little tiny islands. Whenever I have to explain them to people, I'm like, okay, there's this little island grouping about 1,000 miles off the coast of Madagascar. And we took a break. We left Somalia for just long enough to take a Navy ship over there, and they put us in. And man, to this day, white sand beaches. It looked like a mini Jamaica, but like in the middle of the Indian Ocean. And Bovilan Bay, that was the name of like the little resort area on this place. And it's like where Europeans would spend like 13 grand to take a little plane in and vacation. This was in the 90s. It cost 13 grand to get there.
Wow.
So they took a whole Navy ship. That was a terrible idea. But there was this little casino, Bovilan Bay, and we would go to that casino And I tell people it was like a little piece of being in a James Bond movie. Like you'd go to the blackjack table or the roulette table and you're playing with these weird money chips and all this stuff. And then you'd walk out to the beach. And I did a parasailing there and all this other crazy stuff all on the Marine Corps' dime. It was great.
That's awesome. Dropping a big Navy ship right in the middle of a resort. Then letting the Marines go. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It reminds me of a story when I guess they took a Navy ship to Iceland. And if anybody who was there when they did this is listening, I'm very proud of you guys. But they drank Iceland out of all their beer in like 3 or 6 days. Some weird, like just super fast number. But like a Navy ship drank all the booze in the country. God, I'm so
That's awesome.
I'm so proud.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
What? Okay, so we got the worst place, the best place. What was probably the craziest PG? Keep it PG if you can. Thing that you experienced or did in the Marine Corps, if you can keep it PG.
Well, yeah. I mean, I won't talk about Tijuana then and the years that we spent down there 3 days a week, so we're gonna have to skip all that. But anybody that I know that's listening, I still have good friends that I spent those years with, knows exactly what I'm talking about. But let's see. Craziest stories. Okay, so I always like to tell this story about, it's called ACS. It was in that Marine Combat Instructor of Water Survival School. Here I go again, where I'm going to disparage a whole crew of people because I'm better than they are. But I did MCIWS, Marine Combat Instructor of Water Survival. So if you've done it, you know what it is. It's hard. It takes 3 weeks. Almost everybody washes out. We started with like 36 people. 16 graduated. Half of it, like a ton of them were gone on the first day. It was crazy. And every time I tell that story, then whoever did that level that's below me says, "Oh, I did the whatever the other course that's like the level down below." I'm like, "Yeah, the 2-day course where they hold you underwater." So I'm doing this MCIWS class, and one of the things that they have to teach us is aquatic confidence skills. It's called ACS. You're back. ACS, aquatic confidence skills. And that is, as you know, in the Marine Corps, anytime they give something a stupid and, inane name, it is probably terrible. And aquatic confidence skills mean that they have you tie your hands and feet behind your back. You jump from a 10-foot tower into a pool, and you have to do 21 breath exchanges by picking up a pair of boots from the bottom of the pool behind your back, going to the bottom, picking them up, swimming them to the top, breaking the surface of the water with them. Take a breath, do it again, 21 times, and then you had to swim 50 meters with your hands and feet tied. That way, you'll have confidence in an aquatic environment. And when they said that that's what we had to do, I was like, I want to go first. Definitely, this sounds terrible, and I want to do that.
How many people washed out at that
point?
Gotta see
how bad this is. Huh?
How many people washed out at that point?
By that time, we were down to a pretty tight crew, so I think most everybody made it. We lost one more person at the end, but yeah, by that time we'd lost like 18 people or something.
Wow.
But I was right at the front of that line. I was like, if we're doing this, I'm doing it first.
Yeah.
Awesome. That reminds me of another story, and this is another thing that's hard to explain to a civilian, because there's very few times where you'll choose, where you have a choice, die or succeed. It's super rare in the civilian world. I've found it is not as common as I would have thought getting out of the Marine Corps. But in that training, I had a die or succeed moment, and I chose to. I remember we had to swim 3 miles, and we had to start in full combat gear with pack and weapon and boots. And man, it is as hard. It is so hard to swim like that. It does not matter how strong of a swimmer you are, but it is hard. So I'm swimming with my pack, my helmet, weapon, boots, and every pull is like can't get anywhere. It's like the uniform is pulling me down and it's terrible. I get to this point where all I'm doing is pulling my head, pulling my body, getting my head out of the water and dropping it and using the helmet as an air bubble to hold me from sinking to the bottom of the pool. And another worst part about it is like at the time I had zero fat, so I sink too. Nothing was keeping me afloat. So I'd pull, bunk, and drop my head and let the helmet hold me up. Bunk. And man, I had way too much time to think while I was doing that. And I was like, you know what? They're going to have to pull my dead carcass from the bottom of this pool before I walk back into my barracks and look any of those guys in the face and tell them I quit. I'm not quitting. They're going to have to drag me out of the pool lifeless. And I kept pulling. And man, I finally, because every like certain amount of distance we could take something off, like the helmet. And so you take the helmet off and then you take the pack off. And pretty soon you're down to like shorts and a t-shirt or whatever. And it's not as bad. But there were a few moments when I was in the beginning of that I was not sure that I was going to make it, but I was never going to quit. I haven't had that kind of experience in the civilian world.
Do you think that was something you were born with or that you learned in the Marine Corps, just that not wanting to quit? And
no, I think you're taught that in the Marine Corps. No,
yeah.
I didn't learn. There's an intensity to that kind of not giving up that I don't think you can be born with. You have to learn it from a bunch of people. And, one of the things I've heard about military service is that they teach a bunch of guys to be embarrassed about failure, and that's it. Like, I think that's it. Like, I would be more embarrassed. I would rather die than be embarrassed in front of my brothers.
The walk of shame back to the barracks, right?
Never. There was no way.
Yeah.
I would rather them carry me on a friggin' whatever gurney. Have them go, well, I guess you didn't quit.
That's awesome. So when you got out, I want to kind of ask about some VA topics, if that's okay.
Sure.
When you got out, because I mean, you did a lot of physical stuff, right? I mean, your body got beat up quite a bit. When you got out, did anybody tell you about VA benefits or encourage you to apply for them or anything like that?
No, that is something I do not remember at all. And
Mm-hmm.
here's another crazy story, but like when you're like, oh, beat up my body, sure. I ran a 3-mile PFT on a fractured foot because because what do you call it? Sick bay didn't open till 8 and the PFT was at 6. And so I had to run the PFT because that's what was scheduled. And then afterwards I hobbled over to sick bay and they put me on crutches with a fractured foot. So I did some stuff that kind of trashed my body, but I do not remember at all anybody explaining the VA experience or the VA system and what it means to as far as benefits. The only thing I think anybody ever told me about was the first time homebuyers thing or the VA home loan program.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was the only thing I ever looked forward to, was buying a home and using the VA program.
Mm-hmm.
It was only by meeting other Marines like you and Blake and all those other guys, and even the guys that I served with who have VA disability and stuff like that, where I was like, what, this is a thing? Like, you can tell them that they messed me up and then they take responsibility for it? Somebody takes responsibility for that?
So that was quite a number of years after you got out of the Marine Corps. How many years was that before you decided to?
I don't think it even occurred to me as an option until maybe 15 years later at the earliest that I thought of it. But I didn't even begin the process until closer to 20 years after.
Why do you think
that's when
that? Were you hesitant? Were you
like
worried about?
It feels truthfully, it feels selfish. I don't know if anybody ever says this, but it feels like you're like, oh, my problems, I'm going to make my problems your problems, you know? Um, but the more I have gotten into it, the more it's just not like that. It's more like admitting like these are things that happened, and this is how my life is different because of them. And this is a VA program that is there specifically for that reason. And then they can provide assistance based on, the everybody admitting that it's problems that really exist.
Yeah. I think that when we talked initially about the process in doing a VA claim, there's a common theme amongst a lot of veterans, and that is, well, there's somebody that's worse off. There's somebody that doesn't have legs, especially now after Iraq and Afghanistan. Well, that guy doesn't have any legs, or that girl doesn't have any legs. They're far more worse than I am, and they deserve all these benefits. And or that they got hurt in the military or whatever it is. And I tell them, I'm like, listen, the VA wasn't made for like this collective thing. It was made for you, and it's an individual thing. It's not, you don't compare yourself to that person standing to the left or to the right of you, because your experience is so different. I know guys that have lost their legs, and mentally they're completely fine. And I know people, myself included, that experience PTSD, that, my body is still in one piece. And so when we look at, the guy and the gal to the right and to the left of us, and we see these different things, we're like, they got it worse. It's for them. And it's
Right.
not the case. And so always try to encourage veterans that, if you got injured while serving, or if your body hurts, it's probably because of your service, and encourage people to go after those benefits. And I don't mean go after them like, it's something that you're trying to,
Right.
get,
Yeah.
but it's like you earned and deserve them. Right. So,
Right.
also for somebody like yourself that, waited 15, 20 years, you know, being a 20-year-old kid, being able to do the things you do, and then when you wake up when in your 30s and 40s and in your 50s, your body's a lot different,
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's really what it is where it's not getting benefits doesn't take benefits from anybody else. Like getting the things that have happened in your record, to where you're being compensated or whatever, or being taken care of, or just being admitted that they exist. Especially if they get worse, because like my hearing is an example. Like I can hear ringing right now, and I'm used to it, so it doesn't affect my life. But I could stop and just listen to the ringing if I wanted to. And my disability on it speaks to the right ear, from my firing side, but my left ear. So it's, there's hearing loss and it's documented, and but the left side, they didn't, document any hearing loss. But if my hearing deteriorates further over the next few years, I can always go back to the VA and say, we've connected it. And, I'm getting older and I'm hearing less and less. So,
mm-hmm.
It's your guys' fault. It's the Marine Corps, something that happened in the Marine Corps. So let's, get hearing aids or whatever. Like instead of having to go figure out how to do it in the civilian world or with civilians.
Yeah. And applying for benefits is not as difficult as a lot of people think, right? I mean,
it's crazy simple. It's terribly easy. Like it's the hard part isn't applying. The hard part is beginning to apply for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, man, I stared at that the number of times I logged in. I was like, I really need to do this. And then didn't. And it took like getting to the point where I did apply took years. Applying took 20 minutes. Like it's
mm-hmm.
super fast. And then afterwards, even the process moves forward quickly. As far as them setting you up with an somebody outside to evaluate whether this is a real concern or whatever, and then you can bring in your own doctors or whatever you want to do, whatever evidence you have, you can submit as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that process is super easy these days. I just filed a claim that took me 20 minutes to get the entire thing submitted, and they called me the next day to do outside appointments, and those appointments were set up for the following Monday. Like by I filed on a Thursday, by Tuesday of the next week, the VA's side was done, and I just had to submit my own documentation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times that step
took
right
me
there,
28 years. What's that?
that took you 20 years. No, so that took you 20 years. But so for a lot of people, it's ripping off that Band-Aid sometimes, right? And kind of just laying everything down, going in and talking to the doctors about whatever it is, and we kind of feel vulnerable doing that. And then sometimes the VA gets it wrong, right? And in your case, share your story about the first thing.
When I did tinnitus, I felt it was such a deflating experience, because it took me 25 years to be like, oh, the VA, if I tell the VA I have this problem, then maybe they'll help me. And I did, and they're like, nah, you infantry marine, nah, tinnitus, probably not us. That's your own problem. I was like, really? Okay, well, let's back up for a minute. And I went into my service record, and actually, you helped me get that service record. And when I saw it, I was flipping through, and there was a hearing. There's a hearing test when I came into the Marine Corps, and there was a hearing test when I left the Marine Corps, and there was a clear difference on 2 pieces of paper in my record, and the VA still had the audacity to be like, nah, probably wasn't us. So yeah, you're on your own on that. But as you guided me to do, I submitted appeals or whatever, and then afterwards they sent me to another doctor, and that doctor was like, yeah, it's kind of obvious, like, I can see the difference in your hearing, I can see it on paper, I can see it when we do it right here. More likely than not, it was caused by the loud noises that you were exposed to in the infantry. And then the second time, I'm like, oh, our bad. Yeah, no, you're fine. Yeah, no, it was
the VA gets it wrong sometimes. Yeah. And so that's one of the things I really encourage folks is don't give up. That something like this, sometimes you'll be, okay, I'm ready to do this, and then they're like, nope, denied, and you're like, how the heck did that get denied? Infantry, it's hearing, right? And so a lot of folks will just say, I'm done. I'm done doing this. The VA sucks, and all the different things that we say. And then, but it's really just taking that next step and doing it again until it's right. And it's humans that are looking at those claims, and they're doing a better job. But it's our job to hold them accountable, right? And to make sure that we keep pushing, especially if we feel and we have documentation that those injuries happen when we are in service. So good on you for not quitting.
Yeah, no, it's deflating though when you get those denials back and you're just like, I don't have the energy for this. Like, like, now what do I gotta do? Now I gotta go to another doctor and have somebody tell the same stories again. When you're on the back side, when you're on the front side of it, and you're like, I don't just have another person tell me no or whatever. It can be look overwhelming. When you get to when you do it, and then somebody like validates you, like, no, your hearing is bad because you fired weapons right next to your ear for 4 years, and grenades, because there's always the grenades and the rocket launchers. Mark 19, everybody, let me get a whoop on the Mark 19.
Fun little toys.
Am I allowed to say that? So I have to say a Mark 19 story. Guy, I'm always upset whenever I tell like a 19-year-old or an 18-year-old kid who's never been in the service, like, oh, I've heard of the Mark 19. I'm like, yeah, Call of Duty. Who hasn't heard of it at that point? Yeah, sure. Have you ever seen it though? Boom, boom, boom. Whoa, whoa, whoa. No, you got to see that live. Like, it's for real. There's a guy.
That sound of when you're shooting it. Thump, 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 thump. I love it. I love it.
You just know that there's going to be problems on the other end. Yeah, I love it. But there's a guy that did a TikTok. My friend sent me, the friend that I was a scout swimmer with. He's like, "You got to see this guy. He's funny." And he said, "They have a machine gun that shoots grenades." I'm like, "Yeah, we do. It's really cool."
That thing is so awesome, and even the trigger is awesome. Your thumbs just fit perfectly on there. It's just it's
Yep.
so awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's crazy when you start to think about like your time in the service and all the stories and all the things that you've done, and the firing off automatic grenade launchers and swimming 3 miles and all this crazy stuff. It's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
hard. It's hard to like put it out there and be like, this is what I did, and especially like when you're kind of older and a shape like I am. I'm not in shape anymore. I'm
Yeah.
not a young spry
Hey,
guy anymore.
do not make fun of yourself. You run marathons, dude. I'm not into that business. That is not a thing I'm ever like. I will never be like, "Oh yeah, I ran a marathon last week."
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of fun. I gotta keep kind of young, but when I'm telling buddies or friends that have never served, and you start telling a story, and they're like that look of like, wait, you did what? Like, and then I have to remember with my wife too, some of the stories are not PG, and then my boys and my kids are getting older now. It's like I can start to tell them a couple
Oh,
stories, but yeah.
really,
But
it's
luckily, there's
hard to
no
differentiate.
video.
Yeah, yeah. I have
Yeah.
a whole series of pictures from all the different weapons that a lot of different weapons I fired. But I like another one of those weapons that I'll tell people about that they're like, "Oh yeah, that's really cool. I seen that," and they see the stuff on YouTube. Like, "Oh, see somebody fired on YouTube." And I'm like, "No, man, I have fired the Bear 50 cal, and the thing moves the earth when it goes off, and it is freaking amazing, and it is pinpoint accurate to like 1,800 meters. You're like, dink, right there, and you pull that trigger, it's like, the dirt lifts around you. God, I love that stuff."
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And that is why I joined the Marine Corps. It was for that. I tell people like, "Why'd you join the Marine Corps?" So I could crawl through the mud, shoot guns, and blow stuff up. Period.
In and done. Got to do it. Check.
Yeah,
Check. Awesome.
exactly.
So, any other stories you wanna share, or any piece of advice that you want to give to the next generation of folks that are serving or getting ready to get out?
Yeah. Join the Navy. Safe. Won't be a problem. You'll have fun. But if you have to join the Marine Corps, do everything. I remember when I first got to that first security force station and they got these billets, I signed up for everything. People are like hiding in the background, like, "No, I don't want to do that." And I'm like, "No, I want to go to SEER school." Like, "No, put me on the list. I want to go to SEER school. I got to see this. I've heard it's terrible." And so, and then the MCIWS, I did that. And then I landed in the fleet unit where I was, on an amphibious raider group. We rode boats for 5 hours in the ocean, and I swam 2 miles from the boats to shore to guide those things into the beach. It's terrible. It is not a great idea, but it is it is just a crazy experience. Oh, I remember one last story that I'll tell people. You don't really know what you're afraid of until you expose yourself to it. And we did a mission out in the middle of the Indian Ocean. We were actually traveling from Singapore to Somalia, and they shot us out into the boats for a little while to do some training. And as scout swimmers, we did like a 4 hour swim up in the middle of the Indian Ocean. And you don't know whether you believe in sea monsters or not until you are in the center of the Indian Ocean and there is nothing that you can see for miles around. And you're just like, "Well, I sure hope something doesn't come and eat us. And I also hope that ship finds us later." Because this was before GPS. You don't even know, you weren't even in that world. Like, you guys all had your little machines that told you where you were. Nope, we just had to hope somebody didn't lose us, and if not, they break out the helicopter. "Oh, we'll find those guys eventually." Um, but yeah, swimming around in the middle of the Indian Ocean is what made me realize what you can be afraid of, because it's not just knowing how to swim; it is whether there's sea monsters down there 3 miles below the surface that are like, "Yeah, no, we could eat you. We had no problem with that." I'm
That's
not that
awesome.
tough. It's not, like I always think of those SEALs guys, and those guys always seem super tough. I'm over here like, "No, I don't know, man. Sea monster could have ate me in the middle of the Indian Ocean. I don't know. Maybe we just got lucky. It could have been watching us. Who's to say?"
Well, awesome, Kerry. I really appreciate your time. The stories were amazing. The fact that you were in the Army and I didn't even know about it.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Sorry.
won't forget that.
Apologize.
Yeah,
Well, that
yeah.
you notice I'm not out there bragging about my time I spent in the Army.
Right, right. That's okay. We'll forget about that piece. But thank you so much for sharing. I know it's not always easy, but appreciate it, and we look forward to getting this out there so your stories will live on. And
Ooh,
appreciate
live
any
in
parting
infamy.
shot. Live in infamy.
What's that?
Yeah, yeah. Any parting shots you want to give?
No, man. I need to shut my mouth. I've said too much already.
Someone's coming after you. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, if I have a
Right
job,
on,
I'm
man.
ready. We'll. All right.
At Pachunga, right?
Yeah, Pachonga.
Yeah. Right on, man. Hey, it was a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much again. Appreciate it. And we'll catch up with you later, okay?
All right, sounds good, Pat.
Thank you for joining us tonight and hope you enjoy.